Welcome to NFL Daily, where our toe is always in bounds. We are here on the very first game of the year. Chiefs win 27-20. I am Gregg Rosenthal. So lucky today to be joined by Jourdan Rodrigue. We are going live on YouTube, so hello to all the people out there watching on YouTube, but most of you listening to us in your ears. Jourdan, I apologize to the gods at the NFL for ever doubting that this should be the game. I was like, oh, why you want to burn Ravens Chiefs right off the bat? This was an incredible way to start the season, and I'm so happy to be starting it with you.
I know it lived up to all the hype that I had in my brain about football being back, and to use my Gregg impression, I'm so happy. We texted in the second quarter about halftime. We talked on the phone for a minute at halftime just to catch up on just ideas and thoughts, and both of us just took kind of a moment and just thought, oh, I'm so happy right now, like football being back, and it's these stakes and toe. My goodness, we're here, we're back.
We're such dorks, and yes, I'm a dork. I'm like sending out the link as we're actually
I know,
posting
I'm trying
it.
to like activate my screen here. Sorry, ETP behind the glass. I
am so excited to go through this game, but I think the easiest way to do it is, yes, we'll start at the end, but we'll also take a lot of lessons from this game and talk about what we learned in this game. And the first thing I'm going to say I learned in this game is something we've known, but I think it's even more true now than ever, which is that the Chiefs can win in so many different ways. And yes, you could say they got a little fortunate at the end of this game. Lamar Jackson missed a couple open receivers in the end zone. Ravens are trailing 27-20. They get the ball with no timeouts with 1 minute and 50 seconds. They have to drive the length of the field. He makes a nice throw down into the red zone. They waste a lot of time on a Zay Flowers catch, and then he misses a couple receivers. And then, yes, he delivers a ball to Isaiah Likely, who is just out of the end zone. Let's listen to Mike Tirico making that call, and then unfortunately, the call by the referee right afterwards.
Rush 4. Lamar trying to make magic happen. Throw it end zone. Likely 2 feet down. Yes! Touchdown! What a play!
The runner's toe hit out of bounds. It's an incomplete pass. The game is over. Kansas City has
won. 27-20. The Chiefs win on opening night by a toe.
So that was the call from Mike Tirico. What, like a roller coaster of emotions there. This felt like a game to me, Jourdan, that the Chiefs should have won, that they probably were the better, more under control team throughout. And yet at the end, everyone is gassed. Week 1 is so much different than other weeks, and the Ravens are going to look back on this as a missed opportunity.
Yeah, a couple of missed opportunities here. I think particularly the second half, that the new Zach Orr-led defense, when they said he was 32 on the screen, I knew that. This is not a lesson. This is not something I didn't know, but I had an existential moment thinking about that. I'm 32. I have not done anything like this is. And I was impressed with his defense the first half. They had some busts. The second half, they had some issues. Obviously, the Xavier Worthy second touchdown was a huge one in that regard. Looked like Marlon Humphrey was seeking some safety help there, and Xavier Worthy got behind him. And it reiterates how if you leave the door a crack open, or if you miss a throw, or if you have, a size, for 14 and a half shoe instead of a 14, like the Chiefs will make you pay for it. This is not anything we didn't know, but man, was this a good game. This was a fun game. I'm heartbroken for Isaiah Likely. He had an incredible game and seemed to really get hurt at the end there, landing on his shoulder.
Then he comes right back in.
Came back on and really gutted it out. And and made such a gutsy play. And it just, by that much, it kills you, but
Okay.
that's football.
So I was planning to talk Chiefs to start the game in general because they're the defending Super Bowl champions
Yes,
back
they
to
are.
back. They won the game. For a lot of this game, they felt like they controlled it. And yeah, I actually do want to start here because we're on it with Likely, because to me, he was a revelation in this game. 9 catches for 111 yards, an absolutely sick 49-yard touchdown catch, and where he just makes an absolutely ridiculous hezzy. And it was just a strange night from the Ravens offense that they were waiting for insane individual plays by a handful of players. So it was Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, and Lamar Jackson. And Lamar ran for 122 yards in this game. He threw for 273 and a touchdown. And yet it felt a little scattered, a little uncomfortable for him. I'm curious if one of your takeaways from this game, because this is another thing that I'm going to say that I learned in this game, was it was almost too reliant on Lamar Jackson's legs, that this formula, at least on Thursday night, running the ball 16 times for 122 and taking a lot of hits, it was probably too much. Like they were counting on his playmaking too much in this game.
Yeah, I think that you saw him at times check into runs as well. I thought that it was, honestly, I think that once he irons out the rest of it, I think that this will be really special to watch for him, a really special season to watch for him, because you saw him take that ownership of this offense, and you don't just check into runs because you say so. You are allowed to do that because you're collaborating with your coaching staff to do that. So it's not like he was just playing hero ball. Like, this was the game plan, right? To give him the option to do so if he saw it. He clearly saw tons of space, 122 yards, like you said, and 7.6 yards per carry on 16 carries. And they had a hard time containing him. If he had, this is the thing that I am stuck on, because Isaiah Likely is such a great partner for him. I mean, the ad-libbing that they did together on that touchdown, I called it the Matador move, where he sort of stood at the side at the goal line and just allowed the defender just whoosh right by him and then walked in for the touchdown. But that was like Lamar made a spot throw on that play. He was working out of structure and escaping pressure like he was often. And particularly, threw to a spot that he knew Isaiah Likely would be, because the two have worked at it together and they've ad-libbed. But I think once he gets one more element that shows up, one more element that comes alive, gives dimension to this passing game, because you could tell they thought they were going to come out and run the ball a lot, but they couldn't at a certain point because they fell to a deficit. And then Lamar took matters into his own hands. And again, he's given the autonomy to do that, and he had the space to do that on the field. It's just, you need one more dimension here.
Yeah, let's listen to Mike Tirico on the call for NBC on that long Isaiah Likely touchdown, which got the Ravens back in the game when they were down by a couple of scores in the second half.
The quarter begins with 2nd and 17, and the Chiefs leading by 10. Lamar Jackson chased by Chanel, and Karlaftis to Likely downfield. Isaiah Likely with a block down the sideline. Likely inside the 5 to the end zone. Touchdown, Baltimore. Lamar kept it alive and Likely finished the run. And the Ravens are right back in.
So, yeah, that came when it was 20-10, very first play of the fourth quarter. Likely is a third-year player, and I think anyone that took him in fantasy leagues and anyone that took Mark Andrews in fantasy leagues is wondering, like, who got the 1 and who got the 2? Because when I'm watching this Ravens offense, I'm thinking, man, they are so reliant on Zay Flowers to be big time, and that Likely could be the next most dynamic player, and tight ends take a little while to develop. I would caution Mark Andrews, very quiet in this game. He was on the field a ton. He just missed 2 entire weeks of practice after a pretty serious car accident. So this is kind of a preseason game, except you have to play 60 snaps for a lot of players. So just hold off on making too many takeaways there. But I will point out, we talked 12 personnel. If you were with us on NFL Daily on like back in mid-July, one of our very first shows with Nate Tice, where we just totally dorked out. And Jourdan, you talked about how many more teams are going to use 12 personnel more. Well, I've got some numbers for you from Next Gen Stats. The Ravens had 2 tight ends, 1 running back on the field in over half their snaps tonight, 52%, which would have led the league by far. And I don't know if they're going to do that every game, but I do think we're going to see more heavy sets. It's certainly something the Chiefs like to do too. They had 2 tight ends 36% of the time. Noah Gray was really big for them. I want to throw it to you to give me more of a Chiefs takeaway and lesson, because we should give the 2-time defending champs their flowers. They got it done. The toughest matchup possible in week 1 at home. I know it's a tough spot for the Ravens, but ultimately, like, it's a tough spot for the Chiefs too to start this way. So a great way for them to start their season.
Yeah, and segueing into that too, like, I want to give Dave Merritt, the Chiefs defensive backs coach, his flowers here, because I think who? a big I know you're like, I didn't see that jersey on the he I think deserves some flowers here, because there was there's a clear plan to try to get some of these downfield guys, at least try to get them open, get them looks. There was at least some element of that from the Ravens game plan, particularly once they set up some of the play action and those types of things. But you saw pops and flashes from a couple of these Chiefs corners, a couple of these DBs. I'm thinking in particular of a play where I thought, I need to go make sure I know and reiterate who the DB's coach of this football team is. Obviously, Steve Spagnuolo deserves a ton of credit for his game plan, but specifically with that position after L'Jarius Sneed leaves, I'm looking at Jalen Watson, that play he made downfield against, I believe it was Zay Flowers. So ironically, I'm saying give Dave Merritt his flowers.
Little underthrown there by Lamar. That was 2 straight throws in this game, and it was a bit of a trend that Lamar had an up and down game throwing the ball down the field. Missed a few throws down the field, but you're absolutely right. Great closing speed there by Jalen Watson. And it's just like what they do is they uncover these cornerbacks.
And there was a second awareness or a second effort by a lot of these players on the Chiefs that comes with experience and playing together as a unit, and also coaching in the same continuity for a long time, that sometimes in the second half you were a little bit concerned about. And even at a point in the first half, the second effort push for Pacheco, that touchdown, the rollover. I mean, that's a really hard play to be aware of in the first place, but you just saw some of the Chiefs defenders and the DBs particularly make some of those second effort plays that I'm actually sure, I would imagine the Ravens are going to be talking about tomorrow morning or Friday morning in the film room about, okay, well, how do we follow through here? What do we do here? I was to put a cap on the Ravens here, I was impressed in the first half with that defensive unit. They looked a lot tighter than I thought they would be. But then obviously it's Patrick Mahomes. What are you going to do? I mean, the guy is rebounding his own batted pass. I thought Trenton Simpson was going to give the Ravens a chance, and he kind of did there. He gave him a chance, but Patrick Mahomes won a contested catch,
Okay, let's stop you right there. Let's set it up for the listeners of the situation. Very interesting. The Chiefs get the ball back. The Ravens have no timeouts at this point. We'll get to that later because it's one of my big takeaways. But the Chiefs get the ball back. I think it was with over 5 minutes to go, but they have a first down with about 3.5 minutes to go. They run the ball on first down, 2 yards for Pacheco. Get a little conservative, perhaps. Run it again on second down with Carson Steele. Am I getting his? Do I have this name memorized by now?
Carson Steele.
He was a fun presence in this game, but he had no chance on that play. Roquan Smith breaks into the backfield and gets him for a 2-yard loss. Suddenly, you're 3rd and 10. It's one of the reasons why I love Andy Reid. A lot of coaches in that spot would call something safe to keep the clock moving. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. It's 3rd and 10. You're on your own 30. Calls a regular drop back. Mahomes doesn't see anything. Finally sees a receiver flashing over the middle. And here's what we hear on the call.
Chiefs first down here. Lock this one up for KC. It's Mahomes under pressure, stepping up, deflected, and Mahomes caught it, and it's just going to be a gain of a yard, much like Lamar caught his own deflected pass in the AFC Championship game.
We talk all offseason about these teams and blah, 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 and all the different things. And sometimes games come down to Trenton Simpson, who I thought had a really good game. He's Patrick Queen's replacement. I'm looking forward to rewatching this on Friday. But to me, he flashed and showed a lot of the athleticism in the running game and a couple times in the passing game. And that could have been the game-winning play if the ball just bounces a little different and he's able to catch it. But instead, you see a quarterback with a contested catch. He's going to finish with the highest contested catch percentage in the NFL this year. Mahomes should finish 1 for 1. And that not only, kept the ball with the Chiefs, which was massive, but kept the clock moving to the point where the Ravens only had a minute and 50 seconds left after the Chiefs punt to go down the field, or else, who knows? The Ravens are in great shape there. So that was just a fun athletic play by Mahomes in a game where, like, he finishes 20 for 28 for 291, one touchdown, one interception on a truly bad decision, which could have cost them late in the second quarter. He also has, 2 rushes for 3 yards, and you think like, oh, that's a pretty pedestrian game. And yet he was awesome in this game. You felt like other than that one interception, he had total control and he had Patrick Mahomes. Are you more optimistic? Do you have any takeaways about this Chiefs offense after watching them in this game?
Oh my God, yes. So many, many, because this was a team we talked about all freaking off season about, oh, what are they going to do with this new group of, with receivers, and, oh, what's his role going to be? And, oh, is Kelsey washed? And he didn't get a ton of action this game. He was blocking a lot, but then he had that ad lib play. Speaking of, tight ends and quarterbacks ad libbing together, a great ad lib play, one of their classics that they throw out once every couple weeks or so between Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. But this was Xavier Worthy's debut into the public eye. He had 2 touchdowns off his first 3 touches. And let me hedge for a second, or caveat, or whatever the correct word is at, late at night when we're recording this. But one of those was a blown coverage. Marlon Humphrey was looking for help in the back, the deeper part behind him in the field, and fine. But
that was on the 35-yard touchdown in the second half. That gave them a 2-score lead again. That was kind of their answer to that likely long touchdown that we just talked about. Yes,
but I think more proof of concept of what the Chiefs offense is really going to exploit and try to do this year was evident on the first play, his first touch of the game, the touchdown, and it was the fake handoff to Pacheco, and it was a reverse to Xavier Worthy. He got an escort block from Noah Gray, and who just signed an extension, by the way. And that speed and navigation through his downfield blocking, which was prodigious at that point, and really started with that tone-setting block by Noah Gray. It just was, and it was it technically was a quote unquote short yardage play. What a lot of people have talked about with the Chiefs all offseason is the explosive pass. So air yards pass and explosive pass play and getting behind the defense, which again, on the blown coverage, he did get behind the defense quite literally. But in stuff like what I've been sort of honking about all offseason is I think you're going to see some of this Dolphins-esque combination of speed and timing footwork and quick throws in order to exploit the middle of the field in ways that deep passes actually can exploit the middle of the field, just depending on if your receiver can actually get to the spot of the throw, or in this case, use the speed and the downfield blocking to take what is technically a short concept, this reverse, and turn it into a huge gain, and in this case, a score. And I want to go to a statistic that I was sort of monitoring throughout the game, because this is where speed really matters. Sometimes we look at throw time and we're like, oh, throw time. Oh my God. All he does is check down. That's actually not the case here. I looked in the third, late in the third quarter, because I felt like the way the game was trending, maybe you're going to watch the Chiefs try to close things out in the fourth quarter.
I thought this game was going to end quickly and the Chiefs were going to end it quickly. We were texting and I was wrong about that. It did end quickly, but it was a lot of action.
But okay, so at that point, late in the third, when I checked in, I'm looking at my piles of notes here. By the way, you guys can all laugh at me for what a nerd I am. So in 2023, Patrick Mahomes was throwing his average time to throw, according to Next Gen, was 2.97 seconds. That was above league average, which was 2.8. Through those 3 quarters of this game, he was at 2.62 seconds per throw on average. However, his yards per attempt was 10.5. So, and for comparison, Lamar Jackson at that point was also at that exact moment was also at 2.62 seconds per throw, but was at 5.5 yards per attempt. So basically,
they dink and dunked, and they were afraid of their offensive line.
So it's a total difference in what they're doing is they're using the sort of what the Dolphins have showed, and that reverse was, by the way, looked like a very Dolphins-esque play, and I'm sure other teams will now borrow it from Andy Reid, because that's just how this goes. He got to go first, and now people are going to steal from him. But this is about exploiting the way that defenses drop from back to front, or the way they have to backpedal from front to back, depending on the type of footwork and the type of throw they see the quarterback making, depending on the cadence, depending on the motions. And if you have speed players, the way that the Chiefs now do, and the way that the Dolphins do, but the way especially the Chiefs now have showed that they do, you can basically make the plays look like they will require either a deeper drop from the defender, or it's the type of footwork that makes you think that they're either going to go, or they're going to go quick game, and then all of a sudden the speed of the player whips them around behind the defender because they've dropped too deep. You can disguise things when you have speed like that. You can disguise the type of throw and speed throw or not that you're doing, and that's what you could kind of see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense do, because you're seeing them open up the middle of the field, less so maybe even the deepest parts of it, but actually the middle of the field, using all of this game-changing speed in combination with some of the ways they're layering their concepts, and also some of the misdirection that they're using pre and at snap. And all of those things in tandem are great. But if you have that game-altering speed like we saw with Xavier, space on the field that would not otherwise be open with the exact same concepts are going to be open, and the player is getting there faster. The quarterback can get the
Mahomes
ball
talked
out
about it
faster.
to Mike Tirico. I thought that was very telling. That, and I know you were excited about this because this is something that you were talking about in the offseason, how the speed can open up some of the shorter routes. And that was exactly what Mahomes. So you, Patrick Mahomes, roughly equivalent in terms of football minds.
No.
And it's telling that he said it. But to your point, some numbers on that. The only deep throw he had all night was that busted coverage touchdown, but it was actually one of the only 3 touchdowns that he's thrown over 20 air yards since Tyreek Hill left, which is totally insane. 3 in 2 years in a game. That's insane. But he was 4 for 7 in the intermediate area. He did have that interception there, but they had 94 yards on those 7 throws, and a lot of the biggest plays came on that. Noah Gray's going to be involved. We'll see about Kelsey. I'm not worried that he had a quiet night. To me, it's cool to see him out there blocking his ass off at 34. As someone that was always Travis Kelsey is not even in the same ballpark of Rob Gronkowski in terms of how dominant a player he is. It's been pretty awesome to see how Kelsey has evolved, and it's just a total dog. And there will be some games where he's quiet. He only had 34 yards receiving in this game. But you mentioned Worthy, and we don't even have Marquise Brown in this game. He's injured and is probably going to be back in week 2 or 3. It does not sound like it's going to be longer. And that was my takeaways. Just as the Chiefs' juice is back. Reed's spinning the dial. A lot of funky, fun formations. A lot of creativity. I think Worthy's helping that. I think Carson Steele's going to help that. I think Noah Gray getting better and better is going to help that. And obviously Mahomes can handle everything. But Worthy is the key to everything. And it's not about like, oh, the Bills gave up Worthy and what a dope. We'll see. I think Worthy's gonna have a great year. I said it. I was high on Worthy coming into the draft. He was one of my guys I thought was underrated because he just wasn't a speed guy. But he is also a speed guy, and he can be set up on touchdowns where he doesn't have to do that much. Let's hear the first one, because that was, to me, kind of his welcome to the NFL, but in a positive way moment. His rushing touchdown early in the game. Take it away, Mike.
Grab at the nameplate there. That gets you the 15. It wasn't inside the opening. This is the speedy man, Xavier Worthy, the fastest man to the end zone right away. His first touch, a Kansas City touchdown. Oh, man.
We needed our auto racing guys here to call this one. Watch him take this turn, 4.21 seconds. No more worries about whether or not Kansas City has any speed. Beep, beep, here he comes. Golly.
Oh, you can honk about Chris Collinsworth, and you could be, oh, this guy's too folksy or whatever. I love it. Honk, honk, golly. I'm into it. And by the way, you don't have to use the word honk. I saw when you said honk, you said it with a little smirk or almost distaste on your face, as if like it's a rule that we pass out when you sign up with NFL Daily that you have to say honk. Yeah, you don't have to say honk.
Must honk this much to participate. So
we are two honkers. We're going to go deep on this show. Keep going. I'll take it. By the way, great rookie class. Great rookie class performance by the Chiefs. and Brett Veach.
I want to talk
Yes.
about that in the highlight. When people go back and watch this game again, watch number 83, the at snap motion / movement that he does in order to basically, he basically moves open that hole with the immediate movement of that motion. And then he flips all the way around and comes back across as almost like an escort blocker, but he already opened the gap. So basically a pre-escort blocker. And so then he sets the first part of that gap with his block. So that's this type of stuff that happens in the middle of these plays that like Andy Reid is a mastermind of, because it's not just about Xavier Worthy and that was a fantastic moment. By the way, I saw a clip of Patrick Mahomes going into the stands, making sure he got his ball for him. That was his first NFL touch, and it was a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes ran all the way down to celebrate, and then also ran like looking around for the official just to make sure that Xavier Worthy can keep that for the rest of his life. That's so special. That's a great quarterback, a great leader right there as well to do that. But that type of mid-play or in-play movement that just changes space just a little bit more in sequence. It's boom, 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 boom. And you're watching Patrick Mahomes and you're watching where he's going with the ball. So you're not even noticing that this other gap opens up because of the movement that Noah Gray is doing. That to me is what makes this so electric. This Chiefs offense,
Yes.
it does not get old to me. And man, we haven't even talked
Well, it's
about
new.
Chris Jones yet.
It's always different. Like Kingsley Suamatea is a rookie left tackle out there looking like a solid starting NFL tackle in his very first game. If they found a left tackle in Xavier Worthy in this draft, that is how you keep dynasties going, by paying the Chris Joneses, who had a nice game. First half, he's picking on the Ravens guards. He's picking out matchups that he wants. So you have your stars show up, of course, but you're going to need to have some cost control, younger players to keep this thing going, like the cornerbacks. You mentioned Jalen Watson, and like these rookies. And yeah, if Suamatea ends up being an upgrade, it's a little early. It's not the toughest pass rush in the world to go against Baltimore, but a really promising start for him. I do think the defensive coaching, though, for the Ravens was like a little bit of a concern. They had to take the timeouts early in the second half because they weren't ready. I think there was one in the first half actually like that too, and those timeouts really ended up hurting them. That's a situation where you might want to just let them run the play. Whatever is your problem on the field, the timeouts are actually worth more. It's like when Sean McVay burns timeouts on offense. It's the same principle. You had the busted coverage. There was some confusion where it just wasn't as tight as the Ravens defense. But I will warn anyone wanting to overreact here. The Ravens defense tends to start slow and really figure things out as the season goes along. That was even true with Mike Macdonald. It wasn't as dramatic certainly last year and year two of Macdonald, but there's a lot going on. And so they had a lot to deal with tonight. And talent-wise, I think they're going to be fine. I'm not too worried about the Ravens defense.
I want to ask, did you notice how much drama and theater and razzle-dazzle that the younger Hockley put into his calls? Particularly, you could see him like almost start to get annoyed by the fact that he was calling so many penalties for that pre-snap alignment for Ronnie Stanley.
That was crazy. In the very first drive of the game, and the Ravens get a touchdown, and it was so impressive because they had to overcome 3 formation penalties where they got on Ronnie Stanley, and this was a priority in the preseason too, of guys lining up off the line of scrimmage or not, aligned with the guard. And it was almost like they told them going into the game, like, make this a point so everyone watching stops doing it. And I saw it in the preseason too. And I find it very interesting that they put Sean Hockley in this big spot. It's the first game of the season. They know what they're doing. Sean Hockley is kind of like the next ref star. Has a lot of buzz actually as a really good ref. Maybe better than his dad, some people are saying.
Some people, yeah. Some people close to Sean Hockley are saying, but no, I think so. I think that I love a dramatic ref, frankly. Like, as long as the calls are good, like I love a dramatic ref. My other sort of subtly favorite non-football moment was Spags running down the field to try to call one of the timeouts, and only a head coach can do that. And I put out a post on Twitter. I was like, go Spags, manifest it, man. Like, because he deserves to get the pop. He was a coach and defensive coordinator, one of the best every year, and really certainly his unit, as missing a couple of personnel. I was impressed. Chris Jones is Chris Jones. I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say. I also am curious.
Got a little gas though at the end of the game. Like I went and looked at the end of the game though, and he only had 3 pressures in this game. They were memorable, but it wasn't
he forced the fumble, which I thought was a really good play. And then you're aware of him, knowing this, covering Aaron Donald for so many years. Like you're just so aware of where he is at all times. You could tell it was affecting even some of the tight end usage that the Ravens were able to deploy, being in 12 personnel so much, because of just having to account for him and give some of their own players a little bit more help. I'm curious about, I want to ask the sports science department for the Chiefs. They will never tell me, but I'm curious about how many miles total Leo Chenal actually ran today.
Oh, wow.
He was all over the field.
Place.
25 rushes, as obviously he's a blitzer. Then he was kind of the spy sometimes. I mean, obviously that was tough because Lamar ran for what he did. I mean, it was incredible. But being used as that at times. He had 3 pressures, batted the ball. It could have been a touchdown, the Lamar pass that he batted. But I really am curious. Like, man, that dude looked gassed at the end too. I would be. I mean, I don't know who wouldn't be that. I'd like to know how many miles he actually ran today.
Week 1 is such a different game. These guys are really building their bodies up. Week 2, I think you can see that as well. But you mentioning Chenal, like linebacker every year was such a bugaboo, including in the Spagnuolo era in Kansas City. They couldn't get it right. They tried free agents, they tried draft picks, and they've just hit these last couple of years. Drew Tranquill, I don't know if he was hurt in this game. No, he played a full amount of snaps. I'm looking at the next gen sets. I'm geeking out that a lot of the next gen live stuff that I missed last year.
We have live dots now.
But
it's
yeah, we have participation. But him and Chenal are out there at every snap basically in this game, and they played fantastic. And Nick Bolton was out there even more. He was there literally every snap. So they had 3 linebackers on the field most snaps. And again, cost-controlled guys. Tranquill signed a contract there, but it's pretty reasonable. And then you have 2 guys that are affordable, especially Leo Chenal. I think Nick Bolton's going to get a nice contract in the offseason. I do want to just circle back to Lamar because I know there's going to be a lot of conversation on Lamar in this game. And I don't know if he had a great fantasy day and he made it happen at the end. It was a little up and down in terms of his passing. I mentioned the deep passing. He was 1 for 5 throwing the ball over 20 yards down the field, and in most of those he had a chance to make a big play, but other than that he completed a high percentage of his passes, and they did move the ball. They start the game with where he has to overcome his offensive line, and he runs for over 120 like he was sick, but I thought he went out with a purpose to do that, and I didn't see these quotes from the Washington Post until the game had started, but I want to read them to you, Jourdan. I don't know if you've heard them, but
I don't think I've seen. Yeah,
they put this game into context. He said, "How I'm feeling right now," and this was back in June actually, when Kent Babb, who's really good, did the interview, said, "I wish I was feeling like this body wise in the AFC Championship game. We would have won the game. I would have been able to move around for my guys. With me just hurting and can't move, I know if my legs were good, like we would have won that S word. We wouldn't even have to have thrown the ball. F throwing the ball." So that's pretty interesting to have that comment. F throwing the ball.
Because objectively, overall, he is a great thrower of the football. So that's wow.
Right. Although if he has one bugaboo, it is probably the vertical throws, and that he came into this game almost with a mindset of like, if the throw is not there, if the play's not there, just run. And he did take a lot of hits in this game, but the whole idea of like Lamar lost weight and Lamar's quicker this year and the old Lamar runner is back. It's like, yeah, that wasn't just a phony narrative. Whether he can keep that up for 17 weeks, I don't know. But to my eye, he did have more juice today. Maybe don't take quite, like he is usually so great at avoiding big hits, and he took 2 to 3 today that were a little dicey. He was hitting that spin move button, and it was a beautiful thing to watch, but it was a lot on Lamar's plate. It was like a little too much. Like he wanted this game so badly, you could tell. I don't think you want to do that week after week, obviously, and have him carry the ball like 325 times.
Yeah, like I said before, I thought that the Chiefs defense played a good, relatively objective, sort of overall a good game against this receiving, specifically the receiving core. Isaiah Likely obviously found his spots at tight end. But I also maybe push back just a little, although I don't think we're disagreeing at all. I don't think he was always running with just running in mind. Like a lot of these plays that he made, he was running, looking to throw first and looking for the opportunity, the moment. The All 22 coming out tonight or tomorrow will reveal a lot more about where receivers were, because on your broadcast
They were scrambles,
screen,
though. It wasn't a lot of design runs.
no,
Yeah, there was a lot of
and like
pass rush
he's
pressure.
escaping pressure. He's escaping pressure. He found Isaiah as a person. I think this was a really great moment for the two of them to understand that they, in live action like this, they really can ad lib together like that, because it seems like if pressure is like this on a regular basis against this group of linemen, and they're going to need that to happen, similar to how we've seen at times Patrick Mahomes escape pressure and extend plays with Travis Kelce. I mean, this was sort of that moment for me where I was like, oh, these two are going to be great partners for a long time if they keep it up like this. But at the same time, I don't think that I think that he just, you could see he was looking to make sure, okay, especially if the pocket was pushed around the outsides of him, he's like, yeah, that's obviously a lane right there, and I can get 10 yards, or 7.6 yards per carry. I can get an easy 8, pick up an easy 8 right now. But he was lowering his shoulder into these hits, and he was really trying to, I think, set a tone as a captain, as a leader on this team, that this is the brand of football that they're going to try to play, this physical style of football. And I think they would have run the ball with pure running backs, a little bit more had they not been in a deficit, had they not wanted to try to push the ball a little bit as well.
Yeah. Before we go, just any little nuggets that you have, let's throw them out now.
Oh, let me
and
get
we'll say
let me
goodbye.
flip
We
through
appreciate
my.
it. We appreciate it. But one you brought up, I'm glad, is that, yeah, Justice Hill had a lot of buzz in Ravens training camp that he was going to be a key part of this team. We actually talked about that on NFL Daily. So sometimes we're onto things. He played more than Derrick Henry in this game. He played third downs primarily. It was very close, the snap count. He only had one carry to Derrick Henry, who goes 13 for 46. Didn't have a ton of room, but he's on the field for all these third downs. 6 catches, 52 yards for Justice Hill. Third most amount of targets on the team. Flowers ends up with 10 targets for 37 yards, and I mentioned Likely with 12. Mark Andrews very quiet in this game. But yeah, more Justice Hill in this game than Derrick Henry. Are you at all concerned about the offensive line for the Ravens? I would say that was probably, if I had to choose one thing from either of these teams that would just concern me, and it's week 1. I think both of these teams are going to be great, but just like, this needs to improve as the season goes along, or else you're not going to be in the AFC Championship game. It would be the Ravens offensive line. Pass protection poor overall. Yeah. The new guards rotating at right tackle, and then the running game, like, they need to be great, I think, and they're not great and cohesive yet. So I think they have a little ways to go for the Ravens offensive line.
Yeah, it's not like, and again, to bring up Leo Chenal again, it's not like his pressure stats specifically are, out of this world. He was sent quite a bit. But a couple of times, especially late in the game, I mean, you saw, especially coming around that right side, you saw that there was a struggle there. And that's, that can't happen. And you also saw they had to use tight end help quite a bit. I think they want to stay in 12 personnel because their tight ends are good players, but they want to use them as weapons in the passing game a little bit quicker at the snap versus having to stay in chip and then roll out, things like that just kind of take time. They just sort of, in a way, if pressure's getting from the other side, if the guy you want to throw the ball to has to wait a second and chip for you on the other side, that actually helps the pressure on the other side because you're holding the ball, that kind of thing. There's a ripple effect. And yeah, that's, long story short, I am concerned about that, but it's one game. So.
All right, we're going to wrap up with one final play that we want to listen to, because I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle. This is one of the greatest teams of all time in a run that rivals any team's run over a 4-year period, and now they're trying to extend it out for one more season, not just 3 in a row, but having that Super Bowl appearance, having the Super Bowl a few years before that. It's just incredible what they're doing, and it's incredible that tonight Patrick Mahomes, in only his 7th year, is now the all-time leading passer for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he did it on this throw to Travis Kelce.
Go, right. 3rd and 12, deep drop Mahomes. Runs away to find space, fires on the run to Kelce to the 30-yard line. A perfect play for Patrick Mahomes to set the Chiefs record for most passing yards, passing the legendary Lenny Dawson.
I mean, you got the shot right up to the booth with Taylor Swift. You have the Ravens defenders crashing into each other like the Keystone Cops as Mahomes runs away from 3 guys and throws it on a hop. Just what an incredible player.
It was vintage.
I never want to
vintage them. Yeah.
Right. I never want to take it for granted. And it's a big deal that they won this game. If they lost it, we would say, it's not that big a deal. And yet they're trying to get home field advantage in the playoffs. They have an easy division. They have an easy schedule. They have probably the easiest schedule of any of the truly elite Super Bowl contenders coming into the year. And they just won one of the toughest games and have the tiebreaker over the Ravens. So the way last season ended is the way this one started. Jourdan, it feels different for me how this season is starting. So that's familiar, but I'm so excited that you were here for this first show. And obviously you're going to be a big part of the show on Wednesdays all year. And hopefully we'll do some more TNF recaps. This was fun. Let us know, by the way, everyone in the comments and certainly everyone listening, if you like doing it live, and we'll try to do that more often. Thanks, Jourdan.
I was terrified to do this live, but I had a blast. It reminds me of when I'm covering a game and thinking through everything and talking about my notes and looking at my charts and flipping through a billion pages. And I actually got to talk to someone else and not just to myself inside my own head. So thanks, Gregg.
It was a pleasure. I will be throwing it to Cynthia Freeland on our audio version, but for all of the video folks watching, we really appreciate you joining us on this NFL Daily. That wraps it up. And if it's not obvious by now, football is back. See you next time.